Hello and welcome to the Clarinet Ninja Podcast. My name is Jay Hassler. As always, I'm doing my best to bring you the finest in clarinet information and entertainment. Today, we're doing something that I've never done before. We're doing a celebration, a eulogy, celebration of Ken Peplowski, a clarinetist and person who had a big impact on our world. And unfortunately, he passed away in February 2026. I met him. I'd heard him play a little bit, but not enough to sustain a podcast all on my own. And with great effort and an extraordinary amount of generosity and good fortune, I've put together something that I think is a fitting tribute to Ken, his music, his life, and what he brought to all of us. When he was on this jazz cruise, two prominent clarinet players were with him, Paquito D'Rivera and Anat Cohen. They both were kind enough to join me for a talk. And my good friend, Evan Christopher, who didn't happen to be on the cruise, but did many, many gigs with Ken. I couldn't get all three of them to join me at one time, so I made what I'm calling a documentary style, but it's basically conversations cut from one to the next. Their voices are all quite different, so if you're listening to audio only, don't worry, you will be able to tell them apart. I also want to give a great deal of thanks to three more people who I do not know. Lee Mergner was incredibly helpful getting me set up with a photograph. That photograph is not his. That photograph comes from John Abbott. John Abbott, I learned about subsequently, who has an incredible portfolio of photographs, not only of jazz musicians, but of a lot of other things. If you ever need a picture taken, I would suggest checking out John Abbott. I'm going to link to both of them. Lee does some wonderful writing about jazz. I'm going to link to how to get a hold of him, or how to, maybe not get a hold of him, but see what he writes. Definitely going to link John Abbott in the description. And then the other person who has made this, really come alive is a gentleman named Corey Weeds, who was very kind to allow me to use some of Ken's playing to really show as well as tell what Ken was all about. Corey operates Cellar Records, Cellar Records, and has done an incredible job documenting, recording, and putting forth wonderful jazz music into the world. I will link that in the description and show notes. Let's take it back to February 2026.
So the clarinet night was with Ken, Anat Cohen, and myself, and we have we didn't want the night to end because it was so much fun. And then we went to the bar together, and so that means that Ken played with us his final notes, the final note of his life.
Ken has been year after year. He's been part of the cruise and part of the people that presenting bands, a very, very important presence. And in the last few years, we happened to be on the cruise with Ken Peplowski, with Paquito D'Rivera, and with Ken and Paquito, they always matched us. They always, okay, the three of you, so you got to play together, you got to do a show. So we've done some shows in the past together, and we've done the night before he passed. We've done, they called it the Art of the Clarinet, and we got together on the cruise, and we each suggested a couple songs, and we just worked out the set of music, and we played, and it was just, it's. I mean, I'm standing between Paquito and Ken, so for me, I'm in heaven already.
It was a happy night for him, and for all of us enjoying him as a player and as a guy. It was fantastic to be around. So Anat told me that he got a conversation with him the following morning. They called the cafe clarinet morning or something like that. And then he was supposed to play at 4 or 4:30 in the afternoon. He never showed up. So being that the last time that he played the clarinet was with us, and it looked like he was very happy playing with us.
It was shocking for all of us. I mean, because he was really getting stronger and getting better. And he was playing nonstop on the cruise, and he sounded amazing. He sounded as good as ever, and powerful, and inspired, and inspiring, and then he just left us on the cruise, and as properly as a clarinetist should, on a high note.
I don't know if Anat was talking about literally on a high note or metaphorically on a high note, but either way, what a beautiful way to characterize Ken's last time playing the clarinet. But before we get deeply into Ken's clarinet playing, let's talk about Ken as a person. And when I put this together, I realized the beautiful thing about this is that these aren't eulogies to Ken. These aren't people trying to frame Ken in a particular way. These are people talking honestly and authentically about Ken and what he was like and what he was like to be around.
It was terrible because Ken was one of the dearest person, musicians I ever knew, because everybody liked him, admire him as a player, and as a very smart person too, very wit, and we had a clarinet night at the jazz cruise.
Hearing live music, hearing a person that plays the clarinet in such a beautiful way, and I'm standing next to him, and also very, very funny person, but very serious also, and always very knowledgeable, and forgiving and unforgiving at the same time, but also with the smile and kindness.
Didn't mean his standards. It didn't mean he was relaxed about his standards. It just means he just wasn't that aggressive about it or that vocal about it. But if you just pay attention to the standards that he clearly set for himself, you'll walk away with a lot more than cats who just like to make a lot of noise about what they think things should be and how people should play.
He was doing what he thought was the right thing, and was not trying to sell that as the right thing for everybody.
He wasn't trying to sell anything.
Yeah,
he was just trying to deliver.
Now let's think about the way that Paquito and Anat and Evan talk about Ken's playing. It's not vague, it's very specific. His playing is very even, organic, like a classical player, mellow but warm. Like these are clarinet players talking about a clarinet player. And the observations about how he went about it really go a lot into really thinking about what do clarinet players think about when they hear other clarinet players, and even more than that, what do they hear when they hear a clarinet player that they admire in the way that they admired Ken.
There I see Ken Peplowski, who I never met before, and I hear him play the clarinet, and I'm thinking, man, clarinet is such a great instrument. This guy makes the clarinet, like the sound, the classical sound. I mean, later on I talked, we had conversation. I mean, I know his dedication to the instrument and to classical etudes and to study the instrument. But so the guy is swinging his ass off. There's no question about it. But also playing the clarinet in a way that made me rethink about this whole thing about leaving the clarinet in the case for jazz and focusing on the saxophone. I'm like,
I hear a real clarinetist for starters, in the sense that he paid a lot of attention to how he wanted the instrument to sound, pretty much from top to bottom. And unlike me, I think he actually wanted it to sound, his way. He wanted his sound from top to bottom, right? as opposed to my way, which would be actually treating it as 3 different instruments with 3 different voices depending on the register. So, but his thing was a little bit different. He had a much more focused approach to how he wanted the evenness of color throughout the range, throughout the whole range of the instrument.
It's almost intimidating playing with him. without even trying. Every note that he plays sounds so tasteful and right in the pocket.
Well, and in hearing him play the clarinet, he plays the clarinet. It's very even the way he plays the clarinet. The tone is very even.
That's a good word to be very even. Sometimes it sounds like a classical player.
Having been on the bandstand with him, I'll tell you that it's not. I mean, when you say jazz mouthpiece, usually what that means in geeky clarinet land is that we have basically we want a wider. We want a dynamic ceiling that'll get us there when there's drums, piano, bass, and drums, and his go-to, if I recall, I think it was maybe a Portnoy, not even their most open Portnoy. It might have been a BP2, which probably comes in closer to maybe 1.2, as opposed to My Nonsense, which comes in around 1.59. And I think what he wanted was, like I say, he wanted consistency with the sound across the registers, and he wasn't really interested in overblowing the horn past that point of resonance that he wanted to hear. Whereas in the New Orleans tradition, pretty much and in a lot of other ethnic music traditions, I wouldn't call jazz an ethnic music tradition, but in most other ethnic traditions of clarinet, I think it is more accepted to come up with a sound that's largely more fundamental and less of the overtones that we'd associate with classical music. Ken was somewhere in between. The richness that he wanted was still just say more with more breath and more space around it than a classical clarinet sound. But the evenness is what he wanted, and I don't think he was interested in having a more open setup, even if it would allow him to project more or play louder. More, I think he preferred to use microphones and make sure that he had that consistency across registers, and he wasn't really going for to being able to set the clarinet to stun.
No, that type of technique and the control of the instrument and the beauty of the sound, you have to be a student of the classical clarinet first.
All right, so we've established what Ken sounded like, the evenness, the classical discipline underneath all of that swing. The way he chose to play for consistency rather than volume, for precision rather than flash. Well, the next question naturally seems like, where does that put him in the long history of jazz clarinet? That history is pretty long, and within it, pretty specific. Ken had a position that all 3 of these clarinet players described in a way that's genuinely unusual.
Very few players, among them Wynton Marsalis. I will tell you something. Jazz people these days, and this is nothing wrong with it, but most of jazz players, they concentrate their style, their language in the bebop line. All of them are concentrating people like Charlie Parker, Buddy Franco, people, Dizzy Gillespie, that language. But Ken was a player who used from the very traditional style of jazz to the more advanced, including also element of pop music and music in general, classical music too. And I mentioned Wynton Marsalis because Wynton say a phrase that I like it very much. He say, all jazz is contemporary music. Since the creation at the beginning of the 20th century until today. So the same thing, that is a very classical music way to see jazz music. Because you don't play modern jazz, you play jazz, and you can use all those elements. Very few people do that. One of them was Ken Peplowski, a person who used elements of all the epochs in jazz music.
I think the main focus for him, in terms of having a relationship with the tradition, was his relationship to the songs. Yeah, even more than his relationship to whatever we would think of as a lineage or a family of jazz clarinet. I think we had probably more conversations about songwriters and songs we liked, and I mean half the time because it was like, hey, what are we going to play together? We'd have to come up with songs, and hey, do you know this one? Do you know this one? Oh, I love that one. I love this one. Hey, do you play it this way? Do you play it that way? So it was always kind of more about the song, the meat of the songs, the little nuances that people miss about certain melodies or even about certain harmonies, and that was kind of I would say that we talked more about that than we ended up talking about the actual clarinet.
Because I am in the same boat. I like to use elements of different types of music, and especially in different epochs of jazz music. But very few. He used it in a very elegant way. We worked a few years with Benny Goodman's swing orchestra. Benny never played bebop, and he adapted himself to that style, and it's perfect.
Like, did he have a way of talking about or thinking about like the legacy of the clarinet and how he fit into it, and then what? How
he always had great anecdotes about the cats and things, and he always spoke passionately about people he liked. I don't think he thought of it as much in terms of lineage on the instrument. He's a Midwest guy, so he you'll learn that he came up with his brother with like Midwest polka bands and things like that. That's where he got some of that the vertical knowledge, and that's where he got some of his early professional experience. And so he reminisced about some of those times, and always funny stories, because it's a funny business, right?
He announced, "I am going to play this piece because Paquito is here, and I want him to listen to this piece I am going to play now. But in the entire week, I am not going to repeat no one single standard." He played 12 different sets in that week.
It's amazing.
That is amazing. That the amount of the archive that he had in his mind. Beautiful.
Let's be real. 12 sets, no repeated tunes, while battling cancer. That's somebody who not only knows music and the clarinet, but loves music and the clarinet. One of the things that stood out when I talked to these three people was that there was no eulogy. There was no talking about it as if it was over. And I think that that's one of the things about being in a small group of people that do a very specific thing. The history is living and continues to live, and your contributions to it stay alive in the people that are still alive within that community. I think Paquito said it best.
We are like a little mafia. There's not too many of us around.
They're fantastic clarinet players, and yet we are all very different, and we all bring different humor, the personality into the music, into the clarinet, and they make it sound so yummy, but so different from each other and from me, and it was so supportive, like the three of us will always be like standing there and be like, whoa, oh cool, like really such a there are a lot of great clarinet players out there, but in jazz, clarinet, it's just such a hard instrument.
It's funny, clarinet players, anybody on the same instrument doesn't really get to play with each other very, very much, very often, right? I mean, drummers hang out and see each other at gigs, but they don't play music together. Trumpet players, right? But clarinet players, for some reason, it's an instrument that sounds good when there's more than one clarinet, or at least people think it does. And so, really, I mean, I would see him at his gigs just as, just as often as we'd end up on a gig together because somebody wanted clarinets. So over the years, even going all the way back to like 92nd Street Y, in the 90s, I mean, we would find ourselves on stage together. Festivals, jazz festivals, or jazz parties where they'd have 3 of every instrument and they could just kind of mix and match. And so there was always seemed like every time we would cross paths, there'd be a duet set we would do together, and even some things with 3 clarinets or 4 clarinets, just depending on the whim of the presenter.
Ken and Paquito are the reason when I said, wow, clarinet is a freaking awesome instrument and I'm going to go back and play it.
All 3 of them keep circling back to that. The joy of being in the room together, of standing on a bandstand with somebody who makes you play better just by being there. Ken had been sick for a while. Multiple myeloma. Years of treatment. There were periods when the clarinet was physically difficult, where the body he'd spent a lifetime teaching to play the instrument wasn't cooperating the way it used to. But by the time he got on that boat in February, by all accounts, he was fighting his way back.
But also, it made me play better. Because maybe I am a little afraid of him, and it's not only a technical problem. It's the entire package. He plays very beautifully with so much good taste. And it's almost intimidating playing with him.
And he managed to get stronger, and he came back to it. But there was a minute where I think he was a little bit frustrated with just physically how difficult it was to play the clarinet the way he wanted to.
Well, I mean, because he'd been struggling with a health problem for a number of years, right? It was 3 or 4 years?
That was even longer than that, I think, yeah. The problem was that there's a lot of different routes of treatment for this particular cancer. Multiple myeloma, and unfortunately, his route of treatment involves some radiation, and that just screws the body up in all sorts of other different ways.
He just wanted to be out there and playing, and he was planning all these, after battling cancer for a while. I mean, he was getting stronger, and the only thing he told me is like, oh, my back hurts, and but I don't want to do any surgery right now. And he was like all planning with all the people I talked to about how he's going to line up his shows again and be out there. And he just wanted to be on stage. And, he lived for the stage. He was a touring musician. I mean,
when I saw him play, I went to see him at the Maryland.
Oh, yeah.
And in that occasion, he sounds a little weak, especially in the tenor. That he was very ill. He was cancer or something like that.
Yeah.
And for me, it sounds sonority-wise a little weaker than he used to, but not on the boat. For some reason, in the boat, he sounds more solid. I didn't see him playing the tenor too much. He played just the clarinet. It looked like in those days he was not feeling very well.
By paying attention to the details in their songs that really give the identity to the American songbook, to find things that actually resonate with us. That's instead of choosing, hey, I want to do this song because so and so recorded it. I mean, Ken wanted to play these songs because he developed a relationship with them. So there's that, and then developing a relationship with the instrument. I think Ken leaves us that legacy of, well, here's if you really pay attention and you don't let the instrument play you. But you decide to play the instrument. This is how it's going to come up with. And I think he was meticulous, and I think there's a certain humility because of his Midwestern kind of. He's very polite and everything like that. But that didn't mean his standards. It didn't mean he was relaxed about his standards. It just means he just wasn't that aggressive about it or that vocal about it. But if you just pay attention to the standards that he clearly set for himself, you'll walk away with a lot more.
Wonderful talking about somebody who deserved to be remembered as a great colleague and a great guy and a great clarinet player.
We loved him very much, and he was a huge inspiration for me and for so many. And we're going to miss his humor, and we're going to miss his sound and his kindness. So we love you, Kenny.
He wasn't selling. He wasn't a salesperson. He was a delivery person.
Well put there. The world today of personal branding, showing yourself to the world in a very curated way. This all came about within Ken's lifetime. And to my understanding, he never fell victim to changing what was at his core, which is delivering music, making music central to what he's doing. Not himself, and not even so much the clarinet, even though the clarinet is amazing. Play some for us. And again, I want to thank some people that made this podcast episode possible. Number one, Ken Peplowski. Thanks for playing the clarinet the way you did. Thanks for playing music the way that you did. Paquito, Anat, Evan, I want you to know this meant a lot to me, that you would do this, that you would take the time out of your lives to celebrate Ken with me. I certainly would have been able to do none of this without you. I want to thank, again, Lee Mergner, John Abbott, and Corey Weeds, who really allowed the finishing touches to make this into what it was. One more time, my name is Jay Hassler. This is the Clarinet Ninja Podcast. Hope you enjoyed it. If you knew Ken, please put something in the comments, a nice memory, something that meant something to you. And I'll see you next time on the Clarinet Ninja Podcast.